Well, yesterday was a hell of a nightmare. Hey guys, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums, and today I am going to do another album review. Originally, I wanted to do this album review yesterday, but I just didn't have the time because some crazy shit happened, at least for me. But yeah, anyway, it's Lingua Ignota with Caligula. So Lingua Ignota is actually Kristen Hater, and this is her second album. And this album is one of the most interesting albums I've heard this year so far because it is a Neoclassical Darkwave album, and that's the best genre label I could give to this album, because really this album is a blend of ambient, drone, goth, choir, noisy, tortured screams, and dark piano, balladry, and weird soundscapes. And well, basically the album is very dark, very twisted, and it also sounds very much personal. And it sounds very metal, but at the same time, it's not a metal album. So it is a really weird album indeed. So the album starts off with Faithful Servant Friend of Christ, which is an amazing tone setter for the album. And at first, we actually get some really bright, sweepy strings and these really glorious vocals just praising Christ. And this whole song sounds like an ancient religious hymn or chant of some sorts, and it's actually really warm and glorifying. And it's a great way to open the album, because the rest of the album is incredibly dark, twisted, and tortured. We have the nearly 10-minute long track, Do You Doubt Me, Traitor, which at first has some quiet and somber pianos which are really cold, and then we get Kristen Hater on top of it, just moaning and groaning in a really sorrowful and painful way. Also, her vocals are pitched a little bit so that she sounds a little demented. It sounds like she's on the edge of destroying her human form or something. And eventually her vocals just explode into these really harsh, tortured screams, and at the same time we get these shuffle noises and these really dark soundscapes, ambient soundscapes underneath, which becomes this monstrous wall of noise. And then after the tortured screams, we get some constantly stomping beat and bass notes that are actually kind of scary and menacing, and we get Kristen Hater singing, except her vocals are layered in a way it sounds like she's being possessed, and she starts shouting, "Satan, Satan, Satan, get beside me." So she's definitely possessed on this track. We have the track Butcher of the World, where it has this really amazingly dystopian and dark ambient soundscape, which I really, really love. We get these angelic ceremonial horns in the back. It sounds like 7 angels are playing 7 horns. It sounds like it is the Judgment Day, except the Judgment Day is really cold and damp and really dark as well. And again, we get these shuffly noises in the back, which then erodes into a wall of noise with Kristen's really tortured screams on top. And then we hit the second half, which has some really beautiful pianos and some really painful and agonizing singing, which is really breathtaking, to be honest. And then we have the track May Failure Be Your Noose, and it's probably my favorite track on the entire album, because at first we get these really strangely, oddly clear and sweetly painful pianos. And we get these lyrics which are just, crazy because they cut sharp into your heart. We have the first few lines, "Who will love you if I won't? who will fuck you if I don't. Some really harsh lyrics that carries a lot of pain. And then we get, may failure be a garment to wrap around you. May failure to be a belt with which to gird you. May failure be a noose with which to hang you. Wow. Like when I fail, usually I wouldn't get over it really quickly, but this song just makes it even worse of an experience, you know. And then after that, it gets noisier and noisier and noisier. It reaches a climactic point where these deep bass tones just hit a peak, and then it just melts into these really beautiful pianos, and with Kristen singing, everything burns down around me, everything burns down. That's a really low note. But yeah, it's like, you know, Lingua Ignota, she surrounds herself with all these labels about how she's the fucking Deathdealer, she's the beast, she's a monster, she is grief. But at the very, very end of this track, she kind of exposes a bit of her weakness or her fragility or her vulnerability, and that is the fact that everything around her is burning down and she's actually hurt by that. And that's a great moment. That's a harrowing moment, a powerful moment indeed. And then we have the track Fragrant is My Many-Flowered Crown, and it is more of a slow moment in the album, but it's actually kind of beautiful. We get these really beautiful and nice easygoing pianos, which holds this slow but dark balladry that she's gonna perform. We get Kristen singing sorrow, but every time she sings the word sorrow, she throat sings, and she's actually pretty talented when it comes to singing. And also on this track, she kind of talks about how brothers should love each other, and they only love each other, and God's love was everything, but now God's love means nothing now. So it's pretty obvious that Lingua Ignota is trying to convey these messages on this album that are messages that we are actually kind of familiar with. The loss of love and all that, but she would blow it into biblical proportions, and that's actually kind of impressive. And then we have the track, If the Poison Won't Take You, My Dogs Will. And at first it's super noisy, and we get these really high, soaring, ascending vocals by Kristen singing God Have Mercy, but in Greek. And then she just has so much pain in herself. Suddenly she becomes the conscience in the murderer's mind. The murderer that is Eileen Wuornos, the monster. And it's actually one of the most chilling moments in the entire album, where she tells Eileen she's her only friend, and she tells Eileen to join her, and it's like, it's because Eileen became a murderer because she had experienced a lot of physical abuse and mental abuse, and it's like Eileen had been through so much pain. It's almost kind of justifying to become evil, and you know, that's one really great moment in the album. And then we also have Day of Tears and Mourning, and we get these cold organs in the beginning, which explodes into this really dark and just cold funeral march with some harsh screams and these really loud, unapologetic piano hits, and it sounds pretty dramatic. And then we have the track Sorrow, 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 and it's one of the more uneventful tracks on the entire album. The first leg of the track feels kind of aimless. We get these nice pianos and nice vocals, but they don't really go anywhere. They do not really have much of a conclusion. In the middle, we get some solid vocals, which are pretty nice, but then later on, it just fades out. And also, I have one major issue with this track, and that's the really awkward Lars Ulrich sample. 20 years of hatred. At this point, I think Kristen may be memeing on the song a little bit, which I don't think is the case since this album is pretty damn serious. So, I really don't know why is this sample here, because when I saw the original video on YouTube, it was pretty damn funny. But maybe Kristen saw it in a different light. Anyway, we have the track Spite Alone Holds Me Aloft, which is also a pretty harrowing and dark and twisted track. We get these pianos which sound like they're lost in the darkness and in the emptiness, and they are also really odd and freaky in an uncontrollable way. And again, we get these harsh screams, which has this strong reverb effect on it, and the ending of the song has these sunburnt vocals, which are really powerful. And then we have the track Fucking Deathdealer, which is about 2.5 minutes long, but it's basically an interlude, and it's just okay. It's kind of short, kind of brief, the vocals are kind of aimless, and we get these strings which sound kind of great, but they're also kind of aimless. And then we get the album ending, I Am the Beast, which is a giant, a monster, and on this track, it's like Lingua Ignota has finally accepted her final form of being in this world, you know, and she keeps on saying, I am the beast, I am the Deathdealer, I am grief, all I know is violence, which is a line that hits really hard, because it sounds like she doesn't even want to become this, but she had become this as a result of the things around her hurting her, you know. And at first it's pretty quiet, pretty reverby with these really dark, alienating guitars, but then at the end, of course, it hits a soul-crushing climax with these really dark and destructive bass tones and these harsh, tortured screams, and it's a pretty powerful ending overall. And overall, while at first I kind of find liking this album hard, because it is a really weird album, and there are moments on this album where it's a little too long-winded, a little too hollow, and a little too empty maybe, without providing any interesting ambient soundscapes or whatnot. And also there are awkward samples in this album. I kind of wish Kristen would leave them out of the album to make the album more laser-focused and centralized and concentrated. But still, I think this album overall is a really interesting experience, also a really dark experience. And I really love the balance between the dark, noisy, painful screams and the bittersweet balladry moments. And yeah, overall, my favorite track here is May Failure Be Your Noose, okay, crap. May Failure Be Your Noose. And my least favorite track is fucking Deathdealer. I am giving Lingua Ignota's Caligula an 8 out of 10. So, have you listened to this album from 1 to 10? How much did you rate it? Like if you like it, hate if you hate it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.